Hello, everyone. Welcome back at long last to the Segue Says podcast. Well, this, as you might guess from the title, is about as serious and as political as the Segue Says podcast has ever gotten and likely will ever get. And I can hear some people now saying, oh, stick to music. Well, I would say to that music has always been political, and you need no further evidence of that than the fact that both of the songs I'm presenting today are written by white artists who felt the need to speak up about racial injustice, and both these songs became hits and are still widely regarded. So these are artists that felt the need to use their platform to address real issues, and I figured I should use my silly little platform, whatever it may be, to amplify those same issues. So if this is too political or too heavy for you, feel free to move on to the next episode, but I hope you won't, because these are important songs and they're also very well written and great songs. So the two songs are American Skin / 41 Shots by Bruce Springsteen and Biko by Peter Gabriel. And they both have similar tempos, very slow tempos, and they're both in A major, so we have that working for us as far as the segue goes. Now, to go into the songs a little bit, 41 Shots was debuted by Bruce Springsteen and his band in their 1999 to 2000 tour. And the first recording of it appeared on the live album from that tour, live in New York City. There was a studio version released as a radio promotional single that is incredibly rare and virtually unknown. And then it reappeared on the 2014 album High Hopes as a studio version for the first time, widely available. It was written in response to the shooting death by police of Amadou Diallo, which is a name I do hope I'm pronouncing correctly. I found a couple different pronunciations for it. A young black man who was accused of being someone else and tried to prove that he wasn't someone else by showing police his wallet and his ID. And the police say they thought it was a gun, and he was shot 41 times in the doorway of his mother's house. Just a tragic and senseless loss of life, and representative of a much larger issue, which is the killing of unarmed black men by white police officers, which continues to happen disproportionately in this country. And Bruce Springsteen felt the need to say something about it, and of course received an immense amount of backlash, but also an immense amount of support, because he was speaking to something that needed to be spoken about. The song has a very simple sort of chord loop for the verses in the intro, which is the best known part, which is just A, F sharp minor, E, D. And those loop with several voices. In the live version, which is the most famous, 41 shots, 41 shots, 41 shots, 41 shots. Now repeat several times until the first verse. 41 shots, and we'll take that ride across this bloody river to the other side. 41 shots cut through the night, kneeling over his body in the vestibule, praying for his life. Then here comes the chorus. Is it a gun? Is it a knife? Is it a wallet? This is your life, when it ain't no secret. Yes, it ain't no secret. No secret, my friend. You get killed just for living in your American skin. Then what to my mind is a particularly poignant and heartbreaking second verse that I want to share just because it's so powerful. gunshots. Lena gets her son ready for school. She says, when you're walking on these streets, Charles, you got to understand the rules. If an officer stops you, promise me you'll always be polite, and that you'll never ever run away. You'll keep your hands inside. And if that doesn't just say it all right there, I don't know what does. On a slightly less serious note, I do want to give Bruce Springsteen credit for using the word vestibule properly in a rock hit, because you're not going to find that in many places. But you can hear the point the song makes, and it's a point that endures. You know, you look at the statistics in this country, and they tell the story pretty clearly. And the fact that the song became a hit and is very well known and iconic now, again, this is by a white artist who felt the need to talk about it, because a lot of white people didn't want to talk about it. And on the same vein, I'm not trying to just give credit to white people for racial justice here, I'm just trying to point out that for those saying, oh, keep politics out of music, well, these well-known white musicians that you would think if people were supposed to keep politics out of music would have done so, but they didn't. Peter Gabriel this is the song that made him considered a political artist, and it was in response to the murder by police and by the South African apartheid regime of Stephen Biko, an activist who preached nonviolent resistance to apartheid and segregation, and for that was arrested and tortured and killed. And this song became kind of a calling card for the Amnesty International tours that Gabriel was a part of and the Human Rights Now tours. And it's a very simple song. It was on his third album, which is the album where Peter Gabriel 3, aka Melt, which is what people call it based on the album artwork. And it's a very simple song. There's a Brazilian Urdu drum that's actually played by Phil Collins, Gabriel's former bandmate in Genesis and longtime friend. And I don't have a drum, but I can replicate the beat on the piano because it's very iconic. Dum, dum, da, dum, da, da, dum. Gabriel did get some flack, and I can understand this, for using just a African-sounding beat instead of something specific. And this song is basically, apart from one chord in the chorus, two chords for the whole time. It's A and D. This has another gem of songwriting that I do want to point out, because I think in terms of lyric writing is excellent. But I'll give you a verse and chorus so you can get a sense of the song. September 77, Port Elizabeth's weather fine. It was business as usual in police room 619. Oh, Biko, Biko, because Biko. Oh, Biko, Biko, because Biko. Here's the third chord, which is a G. Actually a fourth, which is B minor. The man is dead. The man is dead. Those are actually words in Xhosa, which is Stephen Biko's language. This iconic line, which is a synth sound that sounds a lot like bagpipes, although apparently it wasn't intended to originally. Now, what I want to talk about in terms of the lyric writing is what I think is masterful, and I can do all three verses because they're so short. is the way Gabriel moves from, the way I described is the first verse is him, as in Stephen Biko, it's specific to Biko's story. The second verse is I, as in Peter Gabriel, as in how I'm affected, how I see it. And the third verse is us, or you, collective. What are we, what are you, the world, going to do now? And the second verse is, when I try to sleep at night, I can only dream in red. The outside world is black and white with only one color dead. Oh, Biko. There's the chorus. So again, that's how seeing the story resonates with him. And the third verse is a plea to all of us and to respond, to do something about injustice, about racial injustice, about injustice anywhere, not just, think, oh, it's somewhere else because it's our world. And the third verse is, you can blow out a candle, but you can't blow out a fire. Once the flame begin to catch, the wind will blow it higher. Obviously that's a little more metaphorical, but the idea is a single person, a single candle. But if everyone's flames burn together for a cause, then it's much harder to stop. And so I think the way Gabriel escalates the message and brings it from a specific person and a specific story to reflecting on society as a whole, I think is just masterful. And the fact, again, both these songs are considered hits, which means that even among, white audiences who would theoretically, and oftentimes do, shut down and not want to hear this, these songs still resonated. And of course, both artists received immense backlash and calls for boycotts, but these songs have endured as important messages from people of privilege seeing what's going on and feeling a need to use their platform to speak up about it, which is why they're such powerful songs and why I chose them for this episode and this segue. Now, for the nuts and bolts musical aspect of it, as you can hear, they're basically the same tempo. They're in the same key. Both very serious, lyrically heavy moods. And so the only thing, and this is particularly easy as a solo artist, but I believe this could be done with a band just as effectively. I like to start with 41 Shots first, because it doesn't really, Biko has that very unique and very distinctive beat that as soon as you hear it, you know what it is. Ba, boom, boom. Side note, incidentally, if you listen to live Gabriel recordings over the years, it's fascinating to me to hear how his different drummers interpret that beat, from Jerry Murata to Manu Katché to Jed Lynch. They each play it slightly differently while still playing the same rhythm. They just use different drums and accents and sounds, and I think it's a fascinating study, but that's just me because I'm a dork. And the cat's yelling at me now. But 41 Shots is much more of a straightforward rock beat. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And in fact, the live version that's most famous really doesn't use drums all that much. So I like to start with that one kind of starting almost in this kind of nebulous, rhythmically ambiguous place, much as the song, the original version does. And at the end of it, this loop that's in the intro repeats. 41 shots, get killed just for living. 41 shots, 41 shots, it ain't no secret. 41 shots, 41 shots. And easy as can be, just keep this up. And insert this rhythm into the left hand of the piano or into the drums if you have them. maintain that the entire song of 41 Shots could be played with this drum beat if you so choose. And if you were to start the segue with Biko, which you could, that would actually be how I would recommend doing it. At least the beginning of 41 Shots, once you get there, is keeping this beat. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then when you've done enough loops of this and you feel the beat is established enough, you stop the lyrical loop and the chord loop and just hold on this A chord. September 77, Port Elizabeth's weather fine. And there you are. Very simple segue, very easy to do, and two very important songs, both of which speak to very important issues, the ongoing struggle for racial justice that we see at home and abroad on a daily basis. So, again, this is probably as political, if you want to call it that, as the Segue Says podcast gets, but I think it was important, and hopefully if you watched all the way through and not dismissed this, it's given you something to think about. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something. And I'll see you next time.